Jon Jones is the baddest man on the planet. If you really want to find out, I will make that fight. I will make Jon Jones versus Tyson Fury in the octagon.
I heard him say that Jon Jones could f*** me up if we went in the room together. I don't think so. Not a man born for his mother can f*** me up.
One thing Dana White never ever wants to do is work with other people. Do you know that? Why is that? Obviously, Conor Floyd, right? That was a big event. And it was great because we got like a big crossover in boxing, the money belt, all of that. That was good stuff. He's never really wanted to work with any other promotion. Scott Coker, whatever promotion he's been in, even in Strikeforce, he was working with Dream, right? Now we've got Ryzen, Bellator. Dana White has always been independent. But all of a sudden, he's calling out the heavyweight champion and asking him to come into UFC, the heavyweight boxing champion, WBC. And he's like, get over here, fight my man, who's the baddest man on the planet. Why is this happening now?
It's a really hard one to take seriously, to be honest with you. Tyson Fury has been calling out Anthony Joshua for the last 150 years. He's been calling out Usyk for the last 150 years. That is the fight to make. When we talk about combat sports in general and a fight in any sport or promotion under the combat sports umbrella, it is Tyson Fury versus Usyk. That is the fight that needs to be made. Then I would like to see Jon Jones versus Tyson Fury, because then you do have the two best fighters in the world fighting.
You're saying you're not even convinced that's the right fight to make?
At one time, we did have the opportunity to see Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. But the major issue there is Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn could not fucking agree on getting that deal done. We have arguably the biggest British boxing event ever on the cards, and they just couldn't get it done. And that shows you that ultimately that those two promoters do not give a fuck about the fans. They only give a fuck about the money. Now, when we're talking about Jon Jones versus Tyson Fury, could that be made? Yes, because we've seen it be made with Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather as well. So Dana can go out of his wheelhouse when he needs to do it.
You said it's for... They didn't make that fight because they don't care about the fans, only for the money. Do you think Tyson Jones is being pushed by Dana White for the fans or for the money?
First and foremost, when did this Tyson Fury UFC conversation start coming up? After Wilder 3, who jumps into the ring? None other than Francis Ngannou. At that point, that was actually a really exciting time for MMA versus boxing. And we probably would have, yes, absolutely seen Francis go into a boxing ring with Tyson Fury if that was something that Dana was interested in. However, I have a strong feeling that Dana was too scared to send Francis into that boxing ring, because what really would have happened and would still happen is Tyson would box the shit out of Francis Ngannou. There is only one way Francis Ngannou wins that fight: if he throws some crazy Hail Mary shovel hook that he hit like Alistair Overeem with. But the technique, and I'm not saying that he's like this now, he's definitely sharpened his tools, but when you go back and you watch Rosenstruck versus Francis Ngannou, the lack of technique,
eyes closed,
the lack of boxing technique in those strikes, how in God's name did he knock out that man?
Well, I mean, I feel like you had someone who was actually trying to keep their eye on the target and land clean strikes and stood in the pocket to exchange with a wild man and was just like, oh yeah, I can land on this guy. Oh, wait a minute, now I'm getting knocked out. You know what I mean?
The craziest thing about that sequence as well is Rosenstruck, in my opinion, did everything right.
Yeah, he did.
He landed beautifully as well, but it wasn't enough. Yeah. That's, in my opinion, why Dana was hesitant to really do anything like Conor Floyd with Francis and Tyson.
Now we're in a situation where obviously the relationship between Francis and Dana was not good, especially towards the end. Francis has left the UFC. He could have, if he wanted to, like you said, made that matchup, but now all of a sudden Francis is gone, he's in another promotion, there's a potential that he might fight Fury, and all of a sudden Dana's like, oh, come over to the UFC, Fury, let's make a fight. And it's just, he's kind of rubbing it in his face a little bit. It's like, oh, when you were here, I didn't really want to do it, but now you're gone.
Well, and here's the awkward thing about Tyson as well. Whilst Francis Ngannou was on top of the world as this unstoppable, brutish heavyweight that was knocking everyone out cold like it was, a Tuesday brunch. Like, I'll just turn up to the Tuesday brunch and then I'll leave in about an hour. That made all the sense in the world for Tyson during that time, because Francis was the guy. Now Francis isn't with the UFC. Now he isn't with the premier organization. Does Tyson really want to link his name to some guy who arguably is in a secondary promotion? Maybe, maybe not.
It's not like the biggest and the best MMA organization viewed by fans at home. So it's like Tyson Fury is going to the PFL, like, I don't even know what that is, or going to the UFC, people know what that is.
Or even if they tried to put on a boxing match now with Francis and Tyson, and the the whole narrative was they have a PFL heavyweight coming over to box Tyson.
Not even
People
champion.
People are like, what are you talking about?
It's not the same.
Unfortunately for Francis, all of his pull, all of the weight that he was bringing into that potential super fight came exclusively off the back of the fact that he was the UFC heavyweight champion. Now he doesn't have that title. Now that he doesn't have that promotion, Tyson's probably not interested in that at all. And obviously what Tyson does to keep himself relevant from week to week is he does his call outs against Anthony Joshua, he does his call outs against Usyk, he does his call outs against people like Jones, because he knows that arguably those fights may never happen.
Right. It's probably not going to happen. No boxer is going to go over to the UFC in a MMA cage and fight under MMA rules, especially against John Jones.
There's no way in hell that a man with Tyson Fury's stock as a WBC heavyweight champion, with the legacy that he has on the line, is going to come into a cage, get taken down and submitted by John Jones in half a second.
Regardless, Cyril Gane was a fantastic kickboxer, let alone a boxer who has a ground game, and still got submitted immediately by John Jones. And you're right, like, he has so much on the line in terms of his legacy. There's no way he'd come over and do a cage fight. And even if he did, right, either John Jones does take him down and submit him straight away, or Jones stands on the feet, and for every second he's not pursuing the takedown, it's like, oh, well, he could just take him down. He could have done this. He could have done that. The fight becomes a farce in so many ways if he doesn't just shoot.
Imagine Tyson Fury in a UFC cage, no shoes on, probably with a couple of knee pads. It's just
looking like Tim Sylvia.
Yeah, looking like Tim Sylvia. It's not going to happen. What does John Jones make of all of
He's
that?
probably like, I want one more fight and then I'm retiring. Stipe is who he wants to fight. He called him out, so he can just tick it off his list. I mean, like, I think he always wanted to get the title just to prove that he could do it and cement his status further as a GOAT. Obviously, it's something Daniel Cormier did, so that made him want to do it even more. And so now that he's got the belt, I don't think he necessarily feels like he has to do this legacy-defining title defense streak. Who else is there that's a name in that division? The answer is no one. So he fights Stipe, and then who's he going to fight? Sergey Pavlovich? Why? You know what I mean? Maybe he will, but I don't think he will. I think he'll fight Stipe, and then he'll probably retire.
Bit of a GSP, really, isn't it? I do wonder how much revenue they could generate from a Tyson Fury, John Jones fight in a UFC cage. You could argue that the boxing allure is far greater than MMA. Would you say that more casual sports fans would tune into a boxing super fight than a casual sports fan would tune into a MMA super fight? That's the question.
For a casual fan who watches a lot of boxing, to have their, idol, someone they think is perhaps the greatest of all time, go over to the UFC, I think a lot of those people would buy the pay-per-view, because they'll be like, oh, like, I've heard of the UFC, I've never really watched a show, now I have an opportunity to do that. Would it sell more in boxing or MMA? Kind of hard to tell. I think it could be one of the biggest selling pay-per-views of all time.
I love hypothetical conversations as much as the next fan. Even when you have Dana White now saying, oh, I'll do this fight, of course he would make that fight with John Jones, because he's going to slight Francis in the process. And if he can get Tyson in the cage and make him look like a bumbling fool, then maybe that's a really good win for MMA, because let's be honest, MMA hasn't really looked very good in terms of the old boxing MMA crossover recently. It is a terrible fucking fight for him to take, but if he did it, even if he lost in the first 30 seconds, all you could do is respect Fury for doing it.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, he should do it, because MMA has gone over and boxed and got beaten badly. So it's like, yeah, why don't you just come over, shut up, all right, and get your ass kicked, okay? Because that's what would happen.
We need it.
Okay?
We need it.
And then we can be like, see, we fucking told you, all right? Done. End the conversation, all right? There we go. Is it going to happen, Tom? No.